Concerning the proceeding with examination, the group of Shanquella Robinson has given crisp, disturbing data to the leader of the U.S. A letter to President Joe Biden mentioning for a capture was as of late uncovered alongside reports framing a clinical analyst's decision interviews with laborers. And policing Robinson's lawyers begged White House authorities in a letter to President Biden to find those responsible for the 25-year-old's mishap. However, what do these new data hold? And for what reason does the Cabo 6 ought to go ballistic about it? That is the thing we're digging into in the present video. Obviously, before I spill anything, ensure first that you buy into our station. And hit that notice ringer for additional updates and recordings. Like this currently, how about we bounce in my clients? Perceived the U.S. government has numerous needs and obligations. Yet accept that mediating for this situation wouldn't just serve the interests of equity, yet in addition send an unmistakable message that transnational crimes won't go on without serious consequences. The letter expressed in the letter, the lawyers requested help from the U.S. government in two explicit ways the U.S. can follow the removal convention and turn over the individual or people liable for Shanquella's destruction to Mexican specialists. On the other hand, U.S. bureaucratic policing can demand simultaneous ward with Mexican policing, which would allow U.S. investigators to get the case the U.S. as the elaborate gatherings are U.S. residents. The letter peruses the letter proceeded to express that, because of the request a warrant had been given to Dejanette Jackson, one of the six ladies Shanquella had gone with. Miss Jackson was perceived as the femicide's offender. The archive peruses the lawyers are additionally approaching President Biden and the State Division to remove everybody on the excursion back to Mexico to have to deal with criminal penalties. Furthermore, the attendant of the manor who filled in as the gatherings interpreter during the excursion gave an exhaustive first individual record of the episode that was given to Mexican specialists. Alongside the letter, the attendant told an agent with the specific unit for the examination of wrongdoings that Jackson was the primary visitor, taking care of the excursion game plans. The attendant likewise said that the principal night the gathering showed up, he saw something was off. He said Robinson was the last individual to join the gathering for supper, and that she appeared to be not to find a place with the others. The attendant proceeded with he welcomed her, yet she didn't grin or express anything to him. She was unique. Yet it doesn't have anything to do with the air of the festival. She was awkward at the party. The attendant let investigators know that Disney Jackson reached him the next day, October 29, at 1:50 p.m., inquiring as to whether he was accessible and where the nearest clinical office. He was the message perused. I think my companion has liquor. Harming and Needs Crisis Administration. Jackson said that the attendant had proposed to send specialists who could communicate in English and conclude whether Robinson expected to go to the medical clinic, as well as interpreter communicate in Spanish for them. Jackson gestured in understanding and mentioned that the specialist be dispatched immediately. Later, the attendant informed police that Jackson had messaged him to tell that Robin essentially brought to a clinic, adding that despite the fact that Robinson wasn't in basic condition, he really wanted an IV and was everything except senseless. The gathering was discussing whether they had protection that would cover the medical clinic visit. The attendant revealed the attendant reached the on-standby doctor for the estate at around 2 p.m. The manor's executive reached out to the attendant to see whether he really wanted a rescue vehicle. After security was told to give one access, Robinson began shaking an hour after the specialist attempted to give her an IV. Subsequently, he got a call advising him to go to the estate straight away. Since Robinson had died, the attendant expressed the visitors were serenely situated around the bar and supper table in the fundamental room when he entered the property. In the wake of showing up and noticing one of the visitors talking about with specialists, when he went to Jackson to communicate his feelings, she informed him that they had told Robinson's mom about the misfortune and that it had been so unexpected for her to lose her. because of drinking a lot, as per the attendant. Jackson continued to inquire as to whether he could give her an embrace. She gave me an extremely unconcerned embrace, freezing. I saw an exceptionally miserable visitor, a thin young lady, and I saw that she was in torment. The attendant told the examiner. I left that region and remained external, the fundamental access to give them space to grieve and lament minutes. After the fact, I heard chuckling. The attendant proceeded to review a ride to San Jose was set up for the gathering after Jackson messaged the attendant about supper a few hours after the fact, yet he later discovered that the pack had ventured out to the air terminal. The next day, the estate was abandoned and maid informed the attendant and asked regarding whether the guests had left. The attendant was shocked to discover that Jackson had not messaged. Jackson didn't answer until the following day, which was October 31st, which he let him know that they had left for the U.S. and inquired as to whether she expected to sign anything for checkout. The attendant guaranteed that he thereafter perceived Jackson had involved him as a pawn to drive him into leaving the country as speedy as conceivable. Once the video of Jackson going after Robinson was made public, also the estate's director confessed to experts in a different meeting that he perceived Jackson from the viral video immediately, since he had previously met her top government specialists, have since gotten a duplicate of the clinical inspector's report, which expresses that Robinson's end was fierce and that she had died because of a cracked neck. A passing declaration Gave later said Robinson passed on from extreme spinal line injury and chartbook luxation, and a police report taken from the manor says she passed on from heart failure. The clinical inspector's report expresses that there were contact copies close by Robinson's left lower leg wounds on her head and different wounds reliable with revival endeavors, for example, CPR and a defibrillator. In the meantime, online clients have gotten down on Shanquella's companions, marking them as beasts. Those aren't companions, they're beasts. The way that somebody stayed there and recorded that ruthless thumping, nobody halted it. Probably been an arrangement. They took her there to mistreat her and transformed it into murder. They all should be raised on charges. One individual composed something should be done as quickly as possible. This occurred in Mexico, yet USA residents carried out this terrible wrongdoing. Please Biden assist with dealing with these crooks. Someone else added, OMG. They were giggling after she was dead. Sickening. In the event that those Cabo 6 don't go to jail, they'll serve their time in damnation. While someone else just said her purported companions ought to be charged in the U.S. Robinson, a 25-year-old from Charlotte, died on October 29 in Cabo, Mexico, under dubious conditions while on an excursion with 6 individuals. The gathering, as per Robinson's family, says she died from liquor harming, yet clinical assessments and records brought up issues about the conditions of Robinson's, and her story has circulated around the web. In a huge number of Americans are approaching U.S. authorities to make a capture in her, and up to this point, no captures have been made. Not long after a video started to spread web-based professing to show an exposed Robinson being hit on various occasions by one more lady. An individual not found in the video was heard saying, "Quella, can you essentially retaliate?" The eyewitness has not had the option to autonomously confirm Robinson is the individual in the video. Yet Robinson's mom has told numerous news sources she perceives her girl in the recording. In spring of 2023, lawyers Ben Crump and Swan Robinson named Dejanay Jackson as the individual needed by Mexican experts regarding Robinson's demise in a letter tended to up President Joe Biden and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, referring to ties from an outing Swan Robinson took to Mexico. The letter approaches the U.S. government to either remove Jackson to Mexico or arraign her in the U.S. in reports connected exactly and imparted to the Charlotte Spectators by legal counselors, the chairman and attendant for the estate, where Robinson and her gathering were traveling. Let Mexican specialists know that they perceived Jackson as the lady in the actual squabble with Robinson. In the generally circled video, is this the finish of the case? Will Shanquella at last figure out equity Just opportunity will tell that is in support of us today. We genuinely want to believe that you partook in the video, and on the off chance that you try to buy in, and hit the warning chime for additional recordings like this.